Well, I hope that you've had a good day today. If you haven't, I hope that tomorrow will be better for you. I'm excited to study James tonight. We don't have a lot left in the book of James to cover, but we have a little bit, so we'll probably be in it maybe for the next 2 weeks, but after that, probably not. Um, Before we get started tonight, as always, we want to let you know that if you're hurting and suffering, we're certainly praying for you, and we are willing to help you in any way that we can. We just ask that you ask us if you're doing well. Hey, we're praying for you too, and we hope that things continue to go well for you. We're in James chapter 4. We'll probably, I hope, finish James chapter 4 in the next 20 minutes. If not, well, I guess we won't do what I hoped we would do tonight. But we'll get as far as we can. How about that? James chapter 4. So if you haven't read James chapter 4, pause the video, go read James chapter 4, and come back. You might remember, before we go ahead and read our little section for tonight, last week, what we talked about. We really talked about the idea of humbling ourselves. We don't have the right to think about ourselves in a high and lofty way, because that's just not who we are. Without God, we are absolutely positively nothing. He provides everything for us. The reason we're able to continue living is because He gives us our next breath. Without God, we're nothing. Therefore, we have no right to think more of ourselves, or to think we're better than anyone else, because that's just not true. So we talked about the idea of humbling ourselves, because if we'll humble ourselves, God has told us one day that we will be exalted. But for the people who choose not to humble themselves, there's going to come a day when God takes them from their lofty position and brings them down to a place where they can truly see who they are. That gets us... Oh, and we also talked about, sorry, I just looked down at my Bible and saw that we talked about something else that was pretty exciting last week. The idea of another chance, a second chance, you might say. That is, in our life, we mess up. We do. We do things that dishonor and please. That's not a profound thought. We all know that we do that, because we feel the pain of choosing to not do what God has told us to do a lot in our lives. But if there's one thing that James chapter 4, especially in verse 7, you might remember: submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil and he will flee from you. Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. God is a God of second chances. If we are willing to to rid ourselves of our wicked ways, God is willing to forgive us. That gets us to where we are tonight. We'll go ahead and we'll read it. James chapter 4, verse 11. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers. The one who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you're not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is only one lawgiver and judge, He who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? Do not speak evil against one another, brothers. As if, I'm going to go ahead and I'm struggling to get out what I need to say right now. I'm going to go ahead and say something about what I'm about to say. There's a lot of topics in James that make me feel bad, because I know that I struggle with those things, and it makes me want to do better. This is an example of that. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers. Do not speak evil. It holds the idea of don't speak badly about your brother. Don't say bad things about them. Don't slander someone. That's hard to do. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we might do that more than we might admit. Don't speak evil against one another, brothers. It's easy to talk about people. In fact, I wonder if we could calculate somehow, if we could just pause and review the conversations that we have throughout the day, if we could somehow calculate the certain percentage of how much time we spend talking just negatively about someone, talking badly about a person. It's easy to do. People spend a lot of time in conversation talking badly about certain people. I guess that's not uncommon because so many people do it. And maybe we're around it so much that it almost becomes second nature. Hey, when we're having a conversation, inevitably someone's going to be brought up. And when someone is brought up, well, we should just feel free to spill whatever we know about a certain person. James warns us against that. Now, James uses the terms, don't speak evil against one another, brothers. Apparently, some people had a problem with speaking badly about people who they really shouldn't have been speaking badly about because it's their brother. Okay, it's bad to speak wrongly about someone that's worldly, okay? It's even worse almost. At least it's even more painful to think how our brothers and sisters in the Lord could speak evil against another brother or sister. Why would we want to do that? We're in this Christian life, this race together. Our job is to encourage one another. Okay, living a Christian life is hard. It's not an easy life. Why add to that? Why choose to tear our own brothers and sisters down instead of encouraging them to live a better life, to live more for Jesus? Why? It doesn't make sense. But we do it a lot. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers. The one who speaks evil against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. Now, when James talks about the law, what might he be talking about? Well, maybe some people think he's talking about the Pentateuch, the law, the Torah in the Old Testament. You know, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. That's not it. You might remember back in James chapter 1, he talks about the perfect, what? The perfect law of liberty. And when we had that conversation, we talked about the teachings of Jesus, and that led us into talking about the gospel, and that's what we said the perfect law of liberty was. It was the teaching that's found in the gospel. The law. A person who speaks evil of a brother or judges his brother speaks evil of the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you're not a doer of the law, but a judge. Judgment. That is something we probably do too, quite a bit, if we're honest with ourselves. We judge people. What about judgment? Well, I think we ought to probably go back to the book of Matthew and look in chapter 7. You remember Jesus had something to say about judging others. Judge not that you be not judged. For with what judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and what measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you seek the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when there is the log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. Matthew 7:1. I don't know what, as far as people who aren't in the church, they don't go to church, they don't care anything about church, but they know something about the Bible. Those types of people, I don't know what the number one verse they quote is sometimes in their life. But I would say probably Matthew chapter 7 verse 1 is high on the list. I mean, how many times have you heard people, you tell somebody something and they say, whoa, 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 hey, the Bible says do not judge. I mean, right there, judge not that you be not judged. I mean, surely, okay. It's at that point that we might, caution somebody and say, well, okay, I hear what you're saying, but have you read the rest of that? Because you've neglected the rest of what Jesus has to say about judgment. Jesus does not say, don't ever judge. He never says that. Now, hold on just a second. James says, don't judge. Jesus says, in a sense, it seems, in 7:1, don't judge, but that's really not his point, because he further explains that. What does this mean? Do I judge? Do I not judge? Because you remember, like we just read, what does Jesus say? Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that's in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when there's a log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye and watch it. And then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Jesus doesn't condemn judgment on an absolute scale in Matthew chapter 7. Jesus condemns hypocritical judgment. What does hypocritical judgment look like? Well, it looks like the illustration that Jesus gave. When somebody you know is struggling with something and, let's make it personal. You know you're struggling with something. And you know somebody else is struggling with the exact same thing that you're struggling with. And you cast judgment on that person. I can't believe they would do that. Do they not know how bad that is? That is hypocritical judgment. Because you struggle with the same thing, and while you're chastising the other person for struggling with the same thing. Matthew, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused now. Jesus says, okay, look, you have that very same problem. So why don't you work to get that problem out of your life, and then you can help that person that is struggling with the same problem. But it is wrong. It is wrong to judge someone when we're doing the very same thing. John chapter 7. That might clear up. John chapter 7, I think it's verse 24. John chapter 7. That might clear up some things when we think about, should we judge, should we not judge? What's James trying to get at? What's Jesus trying to get at? Well, like we said, Jesus is condemning hypocritical judgment. John chapter 7. We'll start in verse 1. After this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of the booths was at hand. So his brother said to him, leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works you are doing. For no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world. For not even his brothers believed in him. Jesus said to them, my time has not yet come, but your time is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about it that its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I am not going up to the feast, for my time has not yet fully come. After saying this, he remained in Galilee. But after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up, not publicly, but in private. The Jews were looking for him at the feast and saying, "Where is he?" And there was much muttering about him among the people. While some said, "He's a good man," and others said, "No, he is leading the people astray." Yet for the fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly of him. About the middle of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and began teaching. The Jews therefore marveled, saying, "How is it that this man has learning when he has never studied?" So Jesus answered them, "My teaching is not mine, but his who sent me. If anyone's will is to do God's will, he will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I am speaking on my own authority. The one who speaks on his own authority seeks his own glory, but the one who seeks the glory of him who sent him is true. In him there is no falsehood. Has not Moses given you the law? Yet none of you keeps the law. Why do you seek to kill me?" The crowd answered, "You have a demon. Who is seeking to kill you?" Jesus answered them, "I did one work and you marveled at it. Moses gave you circumcision. Not that it was from Moses, but from the fathers. And you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. If on the Sabbath a man receives circumcision, so that the law of Moses may not be broken, are you angry with me because on the Sabbath I made a man's whole body well? Do not," watch this, verse 24, "do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." Well, there it is. Does Jesus condemn judgment? Absolutely no, he doesn't. Because in John chapter 7, verse 24, "Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." What does right judgment look like? It looks like a person who has the facts right. A person who just doesn't look at something and say, "Okay, now I can draw a conclusion off this. Now I can just..." That's not right judgment. Right judgment makes sure, well, a person that has right judgment makes sure they know what they're about to judge. They're not hypocrites. They make sure they check out their own life. Am I struggling with this? Okay, if I am I need to get rid of it first before I can help this person? They don't just look at this person and think, "Well, I can't believe they would do this. Why would they do this?" Well, they get the facts straight. James chapter 4, again. "The one who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you're not a doer of the law, but a judge." Our place is to be a doer of the law, not a judge. "There is only one lawgiver and judge, he who is able to save and to destroy." Our judgment can be faulty. If anything, we should be aware of that when we read Matthew chapter 7 and John chapter 7. God's judgment is never faulty. It is complete. God knows all. Therefore, he is able to judge rightly. God's the only one who's able to save and to destroy, as James says. Those jobs only fall to God. They don't fall to us. For James says, but who are you to judge your neighbor? There's a way to judge righteously, and there's a way to judge hypocritically. It's easy to judge. We do it a lot. But maybe if James teaches us one thing, and Jesus teaches us one thing about judgment, maybe it's that we ought to slow down next time we're thinking about judging. And we ought to think, okay, what am I about to do? Am I judging based off appearance? Because if I am, I need to stop. Do I have this same problem? Because if I do, I don't need to say anything. James cautions us. Don't speak evil about our brothers. We love our brothers. We want to encourage our brothers. And don't judge in a hypocritical way. Judge the way that Jesus has told you to judge. That's it. That's 20 minutes. I hope that you have a great rest of the week. I can't wait to see everybody on Sunday. God bless.